Number 10. Frozen pup. In eastern Siberia, a frozen pup was recently discovered by locals. While unclear whether the puppy is a dog or a wolf, there is no doubt that this is one ancient canine. It was found in permafrost in the far eastern edge of Russia in Yakutsk, according to a report by the New York Times. This frozen pup is 18,000 years old, but it looks like it could have been someone's beloved pet practically yesterday. It had been buried for thousands of years inside a lump of frozen mud. But the most interesting thing about this incredibly well-preserved frozen animal is that scientists believe it could help them to understand the connection between modern dogs and ancient wolves. Scientists were pretty shocked with this find, as it's not every day scientists discover frozen animals complete with their fur, skeleton, teeth, and even whiskers totally attached. Scientists named him Dogor, which means friend in the Yakut language. DNA testing has shown that the little puppy was a male, but even after 2 rounds of testing, it was still too hard to say whether he was a dog or a wolf. He may have been an ancestor to both. As the ice melts, more and more animals are being found. In 2016, a 12,400-year-old puppy that still had its brain, heart, lungs, and stomach intact was found near the same region as Dogor, in the village of Tomat. Regardless of whether little Dogor was a dog or a wolf, the find is equally exciting, and scientists are hoping to unravel the mystery of when and how dogs became our best friend. Number 9. 42,000-year-old foal. If you thought 18,000 years was too much, check out this 42,000-year-old foal recently discovered completely frozen in ice. A foal is a baby horse, and this bizarre ancient animal was found contained in ice inside the Butyrka crater yet again in eastern Siberia. Scientists believe the colt was between 1 and 2 weeks old when it died, and similar to our frozen pup, the foal drowned in mud and was then frozen. Even more interesting than a frozen horse is the fact that this foal still had liquid blood in its veins even after all these years. This is incredibly rare, as blood typically turns to powder over thousands of years. In fact, this is only the second example of an Ice Age animal being found with liquid blood. It was only the year before, in 2018, when scientists extracted liquid blood from an ancient mammoth carcass. But because the mammoth was only believed to be about 32,200 years old, this new foal has given scientists the oldest blood ever found on Earth, which sounds like a line from a vampire movie, but it's true, and it's incredibly rare. But besides these discoveries, the frozen permafrost kept other liquids well preserved, like urine inside the bladder. Pretty amazing when you think about it. Who knew scientists could learn so much with all these fluids? The species of this animal is known as the Lena horse, Equus caballus lenensis, and researchers have been joining forces to try and clone this species to bring it back to life. They argue that blood is not enough, since red blood cells have no nucleus and therefore do not carry DNA. However, they are targeting the cells and organs, but even there it is a challenge to find the DNA in optimal conditions. Now on to number 8, but first, what do you think about bringing back prehistoric animals? Would you like to see this ancient horse running around? Let me know in the comments below. Number 8. Frozen Siberian bird. This next frozen animal is a bird. That's right, an ordinary bird preserved in ice for 46,000 years. If you want to get specific about it, this bird is a horned lark. It was discovered in northeast Siberia by fossil hunters, and scientists believe this single bird will help them to understand how exactly the ecosystem evolved at the brink of the last ice age. According to an article published in the journal Communications Biology, scientists extracted DNA from this frozen bird carcass and discovered it to be female. This discovery is now giving scientists new information about the dry biome that once covered northern Europe and Asia several thousand years ago. Supposedly, this area was divided into 3 different biological environments when the Ice Age came to a halt about 11,700 years ago. While this sounds like a lot of mumbo-jumbo science talk, basically the frozen Siberian bird shines a light on how these different biomes operated all those years ago. If you're still not interested, this particular part of the world is where the woolly mammoths and woolly rhinoceroses used to call home. The once uniform landscape divided into a tundra, a coniferous forest, and a steppe. Today, there are 2 subspecies of horned lark, one that lives in the far north of Eurasia and another in southern Mongolia. It seems like they've been populating the Earth for thousands of years. Unbelievable! And now for number 7. But first, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let me know what animal from the past you wish was still around. Number 7. Yuka bison. Enough of the small animals, it's time to start talking about some big fellas. The next animal I'll tell you about is the Yuka bison, which was discovered frozen back in 2011. Scientists believe that this was the best preserved bison of its age, which dates back all the way to about 10,500 years ago. Back in his day, this bison would have weighed around 1,300 pounds, that's 600 kilograms, and stood 6 feet tall. They found it in a position that suggests it was asleep when it died. It had no injuries and likely perished of natural causes. Although remains of other steppe bison have been discovered over the years, researchers argue that none have been preserved as well as the so-called Yuka bison, which was found with its internal organs almost completely intact. These bison were nothing new to the area at the end of the last ice age. The steppe bison had been living in northern Europe, North America and Asia starting about 2 million years ago, and ending when the ice age finished 12,000 years before today. When picturing a bison in your mind, you are probably thinking of a normal American bison, but the one that was found frozen is significantly larger than a modern bison. It has bigger horns and even a secondary hump on its back, kind of like a camel. Images of this bison have been found in cave art throughout Europe, even so far west as in France. Number 6. Colima woolly rhinoceros. We have all heard of the woolly mammoth, but how many people are aware that there was once a horde of woolly rhinoceros freely roaming around the world? Not only was the woolly rhinoceros roaming through eastern Siberia near the end of the last ice age, but their remains have even been discovered as far west as Britain. And according to scientists, woolly rhinoceroses were one of the most abundant giant mammals of their time. Although today we have found very few remains. In a report by Science Direct, they discuss how the most well-preserved woolly rhino remains were found frozen in 2007 by a group of gold miners during the opening of a gold mine in Siberia. When it was still alive, this woolly rhinoceros is estimated by researchers to have weighed about 1.5 tons. Unlike the rhinos of today that we know and love with their grey, leather-like flesh, this rhino would have had thick fur, a fluffy tail, narrow ears, and a pair of horns. An important finding related to their adaptation tells us about their short legs that refer to a struggle with increasing snow. While most of the internal organs were decayed and gone, the stomach and its contents were still there. Researchers managed to find evidence of grass and sagebrush in the woolly rhino's stomach. It's strange to imagine such a fearsome beast roaming about eating nothing but grass, and it's also hard to imagine how it ended up frozen in a gold mine. Have you ever heard of these woolly rhinos? Let me know in the comments below. Number 5. Celera Pony. The Celera Pony is another frozen animal uncovered in the icy region of Siberia and was yet again discovered by gold miners. It seems that more gold miners are finding frozen evidence of ancient animals than actual archaeologists. The miners discovered the pony thanks to its tail and 2 legs sticking through the roof of a rocky tunnel they were digging through, roughly 9 meters below completely frozen ground. This was back in 1968, but it is still one of the rarest finds of frozen animals. The pony, which is properly known as Shavatsky's horse, now only found in the wilds of Mongolia, must have lived between 35,000 and 39,000 years ago. Researchers believe the horse would have only been around 8 years old when it died, and because they found its gastrointestinal tract completely full, evidence suggests a quick death. Because of the strange position in which the horse was found, scientists theorized that it had died after becoming stuck in something like a bog or swamp. Basically, this ancient pony fell, got stuck in a bog, and remained frozen under the ground for nearly 40,000 years before a couple of Russian gold miners stumbled upon it. What a weird life story! Well, at least he was found, and he'll certainly have a lot to contribute to animal history. Number 4. Yuka Mammoth. You undoubtedly came here to hear about frozen mammoths, and I won't let you down. The story I'm going to tell you now is about Yuka, the frozen corpse of a woolly mammoth discovered in 2009 by Yuka tribe members in the Yakutia region of Russia. It seems that Siberia will take the discovery of all these frozen animals. The mammoth was discovered with its skin and some of its blonde fur extremely well preserved, as well as some of its muscle tissue and ligaments. But what was extremely unusual about this frozen mammoth was its trunk was still totally intact. Researchers believe the animal was about 10 years old when it died, which was about 39,000 years ago. Before the discovery of this frozen mammoth, nobody knew precisely what 10-year-old mammoths were like, as almost all preserved remains were that of adults. The researchers were very surprised to see that the animal had been growing tusks that had yet to break through its skin. Due to some unhealed cuts on the Yuka mammoth, it is believed that the animal was attacked by a predator, most likely a lion. Others claim that they were possibly made by human hunters, who used to steal from other predators, even today. If it is confirmed that these marks were made by hunters, it would be the first evidence of interaction between humans and mammoths. This would be really amazing. Let's hope it happens. Number 3. Unfortunate fox. This poor and unfortunate fox is the strangest ice cube you will ever see. According to a report by the BBC, back in 2017, a hunter found a deceased fox fully encased in ice in the wilderness in Germany, and has since put it on display at his family's hotel. According to a local news agency, the man found the block of ice with the animal inside it beside the Danube River in January 2017. The hunter believes that the fox drowned somehow and then was frozen solid because of the freezing temperatures. This is no surprise to anyone who's been to Europe for any reason in winter, as they do appear to be getting more and more extreme with worse and worse weather. In fact, Europe is getting so cold that this same hunter claims he saw a frozen deer and a frozen wild boar, and that the fox he put on display at his family hotel was the third frozen animal he found in the region. What a peculiar way to die. Number 2. Alaskan Moose Battle. Yes, the plural for moose is indeed moose. This story is about two moose locked in a deadly battle and then completely frozen solid inside a lake. This happens near the remote village of Unalakleet, Alaska, back in 2016. It is an absolutely astonishing sight. The discovery was made by a teacher who had been showing their friend around a nearby volunteer camp when they came upon the scene. The moose were first discovered with their antlers sticking up above the ice. It was later reasoned that the animals must have been fighting over a lady moose. But as you can likely imagine, none of these strong male moose got to do any kind of mating. They both got dragged into the river with their antlers locked together and ended up frozen in the center of the lake. Talk about a couple of moose gladiators. Number 1. Cave lion twins. What is cooler than a lion? How about a cave lion? Or how about two frozen cave lion cubs discovered in the frosty region of Siberia? Yes, after 2 trips out of Siberia, we're back there. A pair of cave lion cubs took the scientific community by storm after they were discovered in Siberia back in 2015. These twin pups, or kitties maybe, that only lived a day or two, had been trapped in the permafrost for 55,000 years, long before the last ice age ended. What makes these cubs especially cool is that they almost could have been used in a bizarre experiment to revive their lost species, which had been the largest cat species in the world. Because the little lions were so young, researchers were hoping to discover traces of their mother's milk inside their stomachs. However, the tiny little cubs were unfortunately killed before they ever had a chance to feed. This is the end of this incredibly depressing discovery.
Number 9. Komodo Dragon. Komodo dragons are some of the most notorious lizards in the world. They're somewhere around 40 million years old, where they first live in the Lesser Sunda Islands of Indonesia. Around 900,000 years ago, they arrived in Australia as well and got even bigger. Even though they're not the oldest animal species, they sure do look like it. They're living fossils because the Komodo dragons that are currently alive today look an awful lot like those we've seen in the fossil records, even if they are a bit larger. How large, you ask? Well, the Komodo dragon is the world's largest lizard. They can grow up to 10 feet long, and they tend to weigh around 330 pounds. They'll also eat whatever they can get their hands on. They're even infamous for taking down water buffalo. Their bites are loaded with toxic venom, enabling them to take down big game. Even if their prey is able to get away, these dragons will follow their now slowed prey's scent until they're worn out, at which time the Komodo has its meal. A super cool fact is that Komodo dragons sometimes vomit when they feel threatened because, with an empty stomach, they can run faster. Number 8. Umami Rabbit. Around 10 to 20 million years ago, the Umami Rabbit made it to Umami and Takuno, 2 tiny islands in Japan, to become the first rabbits within that region. Since there were no other rabbits there to compete for food, they pretty much stayed the same as they were when they arrived. So this 20 million year old rabbit species holds the title for the world's most primitive ancient rabbit. If you give it a look, you can tell immediately that it's ancient. It has odd woolly fur on its body and a strangely shaped skull and curly talons at the end of its paws. Their method of communication is also unique for rabbits. They employ various clicks and clacks to tell their brethren what's going on. However, Umami rabbits are heavily endangered, even though they've been given special designations by the Japanese government. One of their most vicious predators is the Indian mongoose, which isn't even a species endemic to Umami. These mongooses were released into the island to control the population of pit vipers. It looks like it's working, but much to the detriment of the Umami rabbit, they've been eating them as well. I guess nobody told them that they were only supposed to eat the pit vipers. Number 7. Platypus. The ever inscrutable platypus was recently discovered to be one of the oldest mammals on the planet. When scientists investigated the platypus's genome, they found that its DNA extended back to around 166 million years ago, making it one of the first mammals to split off from the long line of reptiles. Because of this, The platypus is an excellent reminder of our ancient past, even if it is a little strange. When scientists first looked at the platypus, they thought that somebody was playing a joke on them. How else could they be looking at a creature that was apparently part otter, part duck, and part beaver's tail? They have webbed feet, large billed heads, fur on their bodies, and the guys among their species even deploy venom, which they can deploy with their claws once they retract their webbing. Also, they're the only mammal other than the echidna which is known to lay eggs. However, some things have changed during their 166 million years on Earth. In particular, the fossil records show that the early platypuses were around twice as big as the contemporary platypuses. The old ones could grow up to a meter long. Have you ever seen this 3-in-1 animal in real life? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Number 6. Chevrotain. Chevrotains are often referred to as mouse deer, but they are neither deer nor mice. Rather, they have their own classification. Tragulidae, I think, is what it's called. We're going to go with that one. What's pretty neat is they only weigh a few pounds. They tend to be about as big as rabbits. They're some of the oldest ruminants in the world, meaning that they digest their food the same way that deer do. But unlike deer, their stomachs only have 3 chambers. In fact, given that their appearance is similar to that of other relatively modern creatures, it's startling just how crude some of the Chevrotain's features are. They only have 4 toes, noses that are closer to pigs' noses than anything else, and itty-bitty legs. These animals have been around for some 30 million years, and during their tenure on Earth, they haven't changed with the times. Because they tend to hang out by themselves and only come out at night, scientists actually have a lot to learn about these idiosyncratic creatures. There are even some species of Chevrotain that can hold their breath for around 4 minutes to escape their predators. They are very small if you compare them in size to a deer. This makes these munchkins able to avoid being the prey of big predators. Number 5. Purple frog. When researchers first came upon the illustrations of the purple frog in 2003, they described it as a bloated donut with stubby legs and a pointed snout. Not quite high praise, but accurate nonetheless. It's a slimy, rotund creature. It's even been called the pig-nosed frog. These scientists just want to bring this frog down a peg. At least its age gives it some dignity. It's been around for almost 100 million years. The only place that you can find purple frogs are in India, and their nearest relatives hail from the Seychelles Islands. This is what gives us evidence that they've been around for so long. The only way that these two relatives could be found in these desperate places is because Seychelles, India, and Madagascar were once all one big great plot of land. Around 100 million years ago, that is. Since then, these frogs have been evolving in India independently. Purple frogs are a burrowing species, and they stay under the earth at all times except for 2 to 3 weeks during the monsoon season, when it emerges looking for love. Many communities eat their tadpoles, and when this is combined with rampant deforestation, that makes purple frogs an endangered species. But it's incredible to think that they've made it this long. Hopefully they'll make it another 100 million. What do you think about this particular frog? It's really slimy. Let me know in the comments below. Number 4. Coelacanth. Most scientists thought that the ancient fish known as the coelacanth had gone extinct at the same time as the dinosaurs. However, in 1938, a South African museum curator found the first live coelacanth that the world had ever seen, with a random catch of fish no less. This meant that the ancient fish had made it through whatever took out the dinos. However, a lot had changed in between the ancient coelacanths and the one that showed up in that net. They're old, but they're not that bright. In fact, the coelacanth's brain makes up only a mere 1.5% of its cranium, and the rest of it is just fat. Even though they're not big-brained, we probably have a lot to learn from these ancient fish. For a long time, scientists thought that the coelacanth was an ancestor of the first group of fish that sprouted legs and went on to land, but recent research suggests otherwise. In between them and us, there is something that escaped the sea. We don't have too many live specimens nor fossils of these fish, so it's hard to determine how exactly they've evolved over the years. They're both hard to find because they live so deep under the sea. They've been found living around 2,300 feet deep, and their ancient visage is sure to shock. They can weigh almost 200 pounds and grow up to 6.5 feet long. How'd you like to run into one of those while swimming? Did you know that coelacanths have a really long gestation period? Well, just imagine being pregnant for about 3 years. Number 3. Tuatara. The Tuatara looks like a dead ringer for a lizard, but it's actually in a class entirely its own, belonging to a unique order referred to as Sphinxodontia. While there were tons around during the dinosaur age, there are only 2 kinds of Tuatara left in the world, but in the 200 million years that they've been around, they haven't really changed. Seeing lizards and crocodiles around indeed brings dinosaurs to mind, but Tuatara are closer to dinosaurs than any of those creatures. Unfortunately, there are not many of these prehistoric creatures left in the world. Of those that are still alive, they are relegated to a couple of islands around New Zealand. The good news is that the ones that still exist can live up to 200 years and even become parents when they are 110 years old, like Henry, a New Zealand Tuatara. Their lifestyles might have something to do with their age. Most of the time, they live a life of leisure. They like to go sunbathing or hang out in their burrows, just chilling out. When the sun goes down, they start to go after their prey, which consists mostly of beetles and other bugs. However, they can go fast if they need to. They just don't want to, it seems. Just a curious fact about this species before we go to number 2. The sex of a Tuatara is determined by the temperature that the egg experiences. Really funny, isn't it? Just imagine that in summer, more men would be born and in the winter, more women. That would be a bit complicated. Number 2. Ghost shark. Ghost sharks, or elephant sharks, haven't changed a lot throughout their 400 million year evolution. And when you look at one, you might have the sneaking suspicion that you're not looking at a shark at all. That's correct. The ghost shark is actually not a shark. Rather, it comes from a group of fish called a ratfish. These so-called ratfish and sharks split off from a common ancestor somewhere around 400 million years ago. Not only is the ghost shark old, but it hasn't changed that much in that period. Biologists at the Institute of Molecular and Cell Biology recently conducted a study on its genome and discovered that it has undergone far less evolutionary change than all of the other vertebrates which they think came from the same ancestor. That's why the ghost shark holds the record for the world's slowest evolved creature. Ghost sharks are notable for their almost squid-like appearance, with eyes near the tops of their heads and a big protrusion on their snouts. These large noses actually come in handy though. The ghost shark will use it to scour the sandy ocean floor looking for prey. Moreover, the snout is well attuned to its environment, capable of detecting motion and electric fields. Number 1. Horseshoe crab. Horseshoe crabs might look a lot like crabs, but you'd be mistaken. In fact, spiders are nearer in the family trees than all other animals. You wouldn't think that ocean dwellers with huge shells would be rubbing shoulders at the family reunion with everyone's favorite 8-legged freaks. But a few biologists from the University of Wisconsin-Madison recently verified this weird fact. This means that biologists need to rethink how spiders and other arachnids evolved. That's not where the eccentricity of these strange animals ends either. They're one of the oldest living fossils in the world. They've been around for an estimated 445 million years, which predates most of the life that we know of today. What's more, during that time, they haven't really changed much at all. The fossils we found look by and large the same as the ones that are swimming around in our oceans. Besides, their blood runs blue because of the copper that exists inside of their hemocyanin, which is a kind of protein that these creatures use to transmit oxygen within their blood. This blood is also the only source of a vital pharmaceutical chemical called limulus amoebocyte lysate, which can discover whether or not certain drugs contain the bacterial toxin endotoxin, a type of toxin that makes its way into vaccines, injectable drugs, and other pharmaceutical products. I was actually fortunate enough to be able to pet some horseshoe crabs just a couple of months ago. The thing that surprised me the most about them is they actually wanted to be petted. They would come right up to you and everything. Really cool. If you're on the coast of North America or near the Gulf of Mexico, you will probably come across this species. Have you ever seen one? And if you have, did they come up to you to get petted like me? Let me know in the comments below. This has been it for today. Thanks again for watching.
Number 10. Miami, USA. Few things in nature leave more devastation in its wake than a hurricane. And few places on Earth are quite as prone to these horrifying acts of natural destruction as Miami, Florida. Anyone who lives in Florida knows just how devastating hurricane season can be. Nobody knows when the next windstorm will level the city or fill it with floodwaters. According to the US Geological Survey, it is estimated that the southern tip of Florida will suffer over 60 hurricanes in every 100-year period. In 2008 alone, Miami was ranked as the most dangerous city in terms of natural disasters in all of the United States. But this is not new information. Hurricanes destroy parts of Florida all the time. For example, in 1926, the Great Miami Hurricane destroyed almost every building in downtown Miami and killed over 350 people. Then there was the Labor Day Hurricane of 1935, which killed over 400 people. The horrible truth is that hurricanes will never stop plaguing Miami. Its geographic position makes it one of the most dangerous places on Earth. And the worst part is that no one knows when the next hurricane is going to come or how much damage it will bring. Have you ever been in the path of a hurricane? What happened? Did you lose electricity? Did your house flood? Let me know in the comments below. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you like it. You won't want to miss all the awesome videos coming out every week with important information you didn't know you wanted to know. Number 9. Java and Sumatra, Indonesia. The islands of Java and Sumatra in Indonesia face persistent natural disasters. This is another one of the most unfortunate places to live in the entire world. Indonesia as a whole is incredibly dangerous for all kinds of natural reasons. There isn't just one type of force that threatens this beautiful country. Indonesia, and specifically Java and Sumatra, are constantly under threat from floods, droughts, landslides, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis. In 2004, tragically, a tsunami hit Indonesia and killed nearly 250,000 people. This was after a 9.1 magnitude earthquake triggered the massive wave. But disaster doesn't need to come in huge incidents. There are smaller disasters that happen all the time and inflict just as much pain and suffering. Even before that infamous 2004 tsunami, droughts had killed almost 10,000 Indonesians. Volcanoes killed nearly 20,000, and earthquakes killed over 20,000. You have probably heard of the volcano Krakatoa, which is located in Indonesia. This volcano is one of the most dangerous, and it seems to erupt frequently enough to be a menace to society around it. A famous past eruption in 1883 was so massive that it destroyed the islands and created global effects that changed weather patterns worldwide. Even as recently as a few years ago, floods drove thousands of citizens in West Java from their homes, while a landslide completely decimated the village of Tenjolia. If you do visit Java or Sumatra, be careful. A little planning and caution goes a long way. Number 8. Istanbul, Turkey. Istanbul was once called Constantinople, and for centuries it was known as a cultural and commercial centre of the world. This ancient city holds many world wonders, including one of the oldest marketplaces in the world. And if you didn't know the exact location of Istanbul, it is a metropolis sitting right on the border between Europe and Asia. It is also, incidentally, located on the North Anatolian Fault. Though it may not be immediately alarming for most people, this particular fault is definitely going to rupture sometime in the future. And the earthquake that results from such a rupture would be horrifying for the estimated 13 million people living in Istanbul. In an article from Bloomberg, a geologist puts the chance of it happening in the next 30 years between 35 and 40%. That's pretty scary. But it wouldn't be the first natural disaster to devastate the area. The last big earthquake happened in 1999. A 7.6 magnitude earthquake absolutely decimated the city of Izmit, killing around 17,000 people. However, other estimates put that number more likely around 45,000. Researchers currently believe that the fault beneath Istanbul could result in several smaller earthquakes or one massive earthquake without warning. All anybody knows is that Istanbul is a ticking time bomb waiting for a natural disaster. Number 7. Guatemala. South of Mexico is the Central American country of Guatemala. While there are certainly dangers associated with criminal activity in this region of the world, the entire country is actually much more at risk from a natural disaster. This is mainly due to Guatemala's strange topography. This is one of the only countries in the world that is made up entirely of hills, mountains, and general uneven landscape. The country has extremely mountainous terrain, which causes landslides and mudslides that devastate rural areas. It also makes rescue efforts extremely difficult when earthquakes and hurricanes strike. Back in 1976, a massive earthquake killed 23,000 Guatemalans, and because of the country's dangerous topography, search and rescue efforts were seriously hampered. And even if Guatemala is not a direct target of a hurricane, the rainfall is enough to cause mudslides that can kill hundreds of people indiscriminately. The entire country is full of small rural villages where mudslides are particularly dangerous. Back in 2005, when Hurricane Stan struck southern Mexico and Central America, there were over 900 mudslides in Guatemala, some of which buried entire villages under the mud. It's truly sad, because many of the people who live in the affected areas have little money and few resources, and basically no way to recover their lives once a natural disaster hits. Number 6. The Sahel region, Africa. Drought is something people don't really think much about as being a natural disaster. Hurricanes and volcanoes are much more visceral and much more dramatic to watch as they unfold. However, drought actually kills far more people every year than hurricanes or volcanoes. According to the United Nations Environmental Programme, between 1972 and 1984, over 100,000 people died because of drought in the Sahel region of Africa. In that same time, 750,000 people became unable to grow crops and were therefore thrown harshly into foodless poverty where they were completely dependent on aid. This region of Africa stretches across the northern part of the continent, including such countries as Sudan, Nigeria, Algeria, Ethiopia, Mali, and more. Unfortunately, this natural uncertainty and danger has become even more high risk in recent years due to global warming, and this instability also affects political violence in the region. What a mess. Anyone living in this region is bound to suffer because of drought, famine, or limited water. According to the United Nations, an estimated 80% of the farmland in this region has already been degraded because of climate change. Temperatures are rising in this part of Africa 1.5 times quicker than the rest of the world. Suffice to say, there are over 50 million people in this region who find themselves at risk of running out of food and water due to the harshness of the climate. This is not a place you want to live. Number 5. Naples, Italy. Italy is a seriously beautiful country. It has fine wine, great food, and mild temperatures. But in Naples, the threat of doom looms high over the city at all times. There is no need to go back over what happened to the neighbouring towns of Herculaneum and Pompeii back in 79 AD. Many have already learned about the destruction that Mount Vesuvius rained down upon the region. But what we're here to talk about today is why this is still one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Just because the volcano hasn't erupted dangerously in hundreds of years doesn't mean it can't happen again. In fact, the volcano could erupt at any time. It last erupted in 1944, causing damage to a number of buildings and killing almost 30 people. New research suggests the next time Mount Vesuvius erupts, it could be devastating. There is tons of boiling hot magma waiting underneath the mountain that would be spread across the region in the event of an eruption. If Mount Vesuvius were to experience an event like it did back in ancient times, you could expect to see flying rocks and ash at high speeds, choking and blinding dust, and ash that makes it impossible to breathe. If it erupted, it could mean serious devastation for the 3 million people in the danger zone. As for Naples itself, the city could be completely devastated by the fallout. While beautiful and serene as it is, I don't think I would be setting up shop in Naples under the shadow of the mountain. Would you? Let me know in the comments section below. Number 4. Norilsk, Russia. The town is deep in Siberia and it's been called the worst place on Earth to live. The name? Norilsk, Russia. The city is a double threat. It's incredibly hazardous because of the cold climate, which can reach freezing temperatures of up to -40 degrees, causing hypothermia and other horrible problems. Any city this cold is going to be dangerous to live, especially if you get caught outside for a little longer than expected. But the big threat of this place is more than natural. Norilsk is one of the most polluted cities on the planet, and it is located far in the Siberian lands of Russia. Who would have thought such a tiny frozen town could be so toxic? Because this town was a key component of Soviet industry back during the time of communism, it saw a lot of mining with few regulations. And since then, it has been a nightmare for the environment. Huge concentrations of copper and other elements in the atmosphere causes the sky over Norilsk to be constantly grey and gloomy, while toxic rain occasionally falls on the unfortunate residents. The water and air are both poison, and the rate of cancer among residents of this city is sky high. Though the disaster that is Norilsk is not natural in origin, this is still a miserable place to live. Number 3. Kemkem Group, Africa. The Kemkem Group in Africa was once the most dangerous place on Earth. It's nothing but a dusty desert now, but millions of years ago this small region of what is now Western Africa, particularly near eastern Morocco, was a battleground of terrifying magnitude. This was the most dangerous place to be alive on Earth in the far prehistoric past. Fossil evidence from this area dating back to around the late Cretaceous period suggests that this small area was home to dinosaurs, reptiles, and other terrifying creatures. It was actually the most violent and dangerous place to have ever existed. Not because of natural disaster, but because of nature itself. Almost no animals could survive here for very long without being eaten by another carnivore. The study, documented on Science Alert, claims there were almost no herbivores in the area, and that the only animals that lived there were flesh eaters, and that they lived there in abundance. The area was like Jurassic Park, only it was real. It was full of life and death battles between predators and prey, and it was the place where a human time traveler wouldn't make it more than a few minutes before becoming a snack for a carnivorous beast. Number 2. Minkin County, China. In Minkin County, China, the desert is encroaching on human civilization. There has been a drought going on in this region for over a decade, and because of this serious lack of water, the county of Minkin is now being turned into an infertile wasteland. This process is known as desertification, and it's actually costing China around $3 billion each year to try and avoid. This is one of the driest places in the entire country of China, and until recently, the county of Minkin had been the borderland between civilization and the brutal Tengger and Badain-Jiran deserts. However, the deserts are now expected to engulf the county sometime in the next decade, which will make the entire region completely unlivable. Think of this place as being slowly swept over by sand. Crops are unable to grow, lakes and rivers are being dried, and horrible sandy winds are gradually burying the entire region in dust. In 2004 alone, they had to manually redirect water from the mighty Yellow River to fill the smaller Hongtashan River here because it went completely dry. If they hadn't done, the loss of life would have been enormous. Worse still, groundwater resources are still drying up to this day. This is what it looks like when nature decides to take over civilization. There is literally no stopping it. Number 1. Maldives. The Maldives has been a favourite luxury destination for years. Many Western tourists flock to the Maldives every year for beautiful beaches, pristine blue waters, and a calming sense of tranquility. However, this is actually one of the most dangerous places in the world. The entire country is sinking, and it's sinking fast. According to a report by leading climatologists, the entire nation will be underwater and gone in approximately 80 years or less because of global warming. It's no longer a question of if the Maldives is threatened or not, but a matter of when exactly the last drop of water will swallow these islands into the sea. Although this doesn't appear threatening from the outside, and you probably won't find yourself drowning on your next vacation, it is extremely dangerous for all the people who live in the Maldives. It's going to happen, it's going to destroy their homes, and there is nothing they can do about it. They will simply have to evacuate when the time comes, and the Maldives is not actually the only nation currently under threat of flooding. Venice in Italy is one major city that could be underwater very soon, while many people predict that in the next 100 years, every major coastal city will see serious damage and destruction because of flooding. This is much more dangerous than living in the shadow of a volcano, and we need to prepare to withstand these major disasters as soon as possible. It's a worldwide emergency. Would you brave travelling to any of these dangerous locations? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching and see you next time for another amazing video.